Facebook is connected.
This is Andrea Yount. We are preparing for Therapy Thursday, our weekly broadcast on mental health topics. Therapy Thursday is brought to you by Affinity Counseling Services and A Lovely Pause. This is a test.
Affinity Counseling Services is located in Piggott, Arkansas, and Kennett, Missouri. We currently have 4 therapists in our office and are taking new clients. To join our sign-up sheet, you can visit counselingwithaffinity.com, and to find out more, you can call me, Kindred, at 870-324-5122 or 573-840-0440. Thank you.
And A Lovely Pause is a local nonprofit created to provide community education, awareness, coping skills, and support for those with PTSD and other trauma-related disorders. Subscribers will be receiving an Angry August coloring page. If you're feeling angry, frustrated, or just some generalized, pissed offness, you can use these coloring pages to color that away. You can get these at alovelypause.com or sign up on our Facebook page.
This is a test. Therapy Thursday normalizes discussing mental health topics in a safe, supportive environment, because not being normal is normal.
Welcome, everyone, to Therapy Thursday, our weekly installment here at Affinity Counseling Services, where we talk about different mental health topics from a personal and professional perspective. My name is Matthew Yount, lead therapist and president here at Affinity Counseling.
I'm Andrea Yount. I am the vice president of Affinity and the chairman of the board for A Lovely Pause.
I'm Stacy Diggs. I am marketer for Hive Minds Marketing and vice chair of A Lovely Pause.
And I'm behind the camera, as always, taking your questions, comments, and concerns. And my name is Kindred. I'm the secretary here at Affinity and the secretary of the board for A Lovely Pause.
Awesome. Good to see all of you.
Yeah, hey.
Howdy.
What? Yeah, I feel like I'm a bit off today. I don't know if it's because of the rain, just because we haven't had much of that recently, or if I'm just exhausted. But that's normal.
What
That's
about
all.
the construction?
Yeah, well, that could be a part of it too.
The construction is a little cool. Like, it's like, ooh, what's going on?
Oh,
It's
you-
like,
are you talking
it's
about the-
messy when you walk in?
You talking about
and
the
you're
construction
like,
for
yeah.
our new office that's being built?
Yeah.
Yes, we have. We keep growing, and we want to keep taking on more therapists. We just
We
brought
do
on
have a new therapist.
I know we brought on a new therapist for our Kennett location, and we'll be getting her onboarded relatively soon. And we really need one here for our Piggott location.
We are hiring for a Piggott location.
Yes, I'm just
If you know
saying.
anybody who's looking for an LCSW job?
Yes.
Contract style.
Yeah,
Very great place to work. Awesome coworkers that you get. Like, we're included in this package. So
Yeah,
come on down.
Yeah, it's part of the package. Your benefit package is just that we're cool.
Is us.
Yeah.
I think that's a great deal.
I think so too. Is there anything that we need to talk about before we get into today's topic?
Affinity, we don't have all the details worked out yet, but Affinity is, or not Affinity, A Lovely Pause is going to be raffling off a meat box from Garcia's Meats pretty soon. So keep a lookout for that. If you want a good big old box of meat, locally raised, then keep a lookout on our A Lovely Pause Facebook page, or get in contact with one of the board members soon, and we'll have that up and going.
Yeah, we'll be sharing that all over Facebook soon enough.
Yep.
So that's going to be one of the fundraisers that hopefully gets you to the
We're
goal.
almost to our goal. Yes,
Yeah.
we are super close.
Yeah, so that
So
you can start
close.
working with helping clients get the services that they need, especially those that have been affected by trauma.
Yes.
So we're really close to that. Hopefully this raffle will help get us there. So we've got that coming up pretty soon. We'll put more information out about that when it's time. Anything else that we need to talk about before we get into the topic of the month?
August 27th, I'm having my last workshop of the summer for yoga workshop, and it is going to be at the Matilda and Carl Pfeiffer Museum, and they have a beautiful water feature. It's cool. You got shaded trees. It's nice. So if you like outdoors and you want to get some relaxing in, it's going to be a free workshop. So I'm offering it for free this time.
Yep.
So everyone is welcome to come. It is a restorative yoga workshop. It is going to be about an hour and a half long. We'll do a yoga flow, a yoga nidra, which is like a meditation, and then we'll do a short journaling session that's just for you. And so that'll be about an hour and a half long, and it is for people who experience anxiety and overwhelm. And if you're low mobility, this is for you because we do a lot of things on the ground. So if you just want some relaxing, come join me on August 27th.
Yay, free yoga.
Yeah, and Andrea's great with like the modifications because like the last one that we were at, I was so like just stiff, and Andrea was able to help accommodate me by like giving me some different poses
Yes,
and
yeah.
ways to use it and props
Yep.
and stuff. So recommend.
All right. Yeah, so that's coming up at the end of this month. What's the date again?
It's August 27th. It'll be at 11 o'clock, and it'll be out at the Carl and Matilda Pfeiffer Museum here in Piggott. And like I said, it's free, and you can join my Facebook group, Andrea Yaunt Yoga on Facebook, and Andrea Yaunt Trauma Informed Yoga on Facebook. And you can find out more information about what you need to bring and what to expect and stuff there.
All right. Well, let's get into the opposite of calm and peaceful. We're talking about anger this month.
We are.
So we've entitled this month Angry August.
This is something I can totally relate to.
You think?
Yeah.
How so? I wouldn't know anything about that.
I think I'm one of the most angry people. I don't think most people think that. I think a lot of people, even that are close to me, don't realize how angry of a person that I really am.
Are you like the Hulk? Are you always angry? Is that the idea?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So you just carry anger inside of you. I think that was, what was that? His secret was he's always angry. That way he can just like turn it on anytime he wants because he's always angry about something. So do you feel like you always just have this bit of anger that's in the pit of your stomach?
Yeah, and I mean, as I'm healing and learning and to let go of things and heal from things that have made me angry in the past and learning where the anger actually comes from and understanding why I'm angry, I'm less angry and I'm less able to control that anger when it does show its face, or I'm more able to control that anger when it shows its face. So, but yeah, for the most part, there's always just this anger. I'm got a chip on my shoulder or something.
Well, I think your ability to self manage is why people would not assume that of you.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, just because you are good at carrying it doesn't mean it's not heavy, but people don't see it as much.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so what is the topic for today before we get into the overall topic for the month?
Why am I angry?
Why am I angry? Okay.
It's Angry August, and today we're asking, why am I angry?
Well, there's a multitude of reasons why people are angry, but let's go ahead and start with yours because yours can translate to why other people are angry as well. So why do you feel like you carry a bit of anger with you wherever you go?
Well, a Lovely Paul's Angry August email went out yesterday, and I did a write-up in that email on anger. And what I said in that post or that email is that, you know, a lot of times our anger, we justify it by things that our past experiences, things that have happened to us in the past. So our anger is just pain, hurt, shame that is justified. We're justifying our anger from this pain, hurt, and shame that we had before. And so in order to protect ourselves, we're projecting anger in that situation instead of feeling the anger, hurt, and shame. So for me, it goes back to those past experiences where I've been hurt, and it's more directed towards people who look like, sound like, or do the things that these other people who hurt me have done. So I'm automatically going to have an immediate anger response to those types of situations or people.
So the underlying like emotions are again, so it's pain,
Shame, and fear.
pain, shame, and fear. Yeah. So like anger is just like I think you made a post for this. Like it's a secondary.
Yes, it's a
response.
secondary. So that anger is, anger is not normally. You don't normally just I think we've had this conversation. The only like real true anger is like righteous anger, right? Like divine anger, like anger about your something that's
Injustice.
Yes, that type of anger, injustice type of anger, and then every other type of anger is more of a pain, cover up for pain, cover up for your shame or your fear. Like Matt has said before, a lot of that shame is based in fear even. So a lot of times it's really just pain and fear that you're trying to cover up with all this anger. Anger is, this is another thing I wrote in the write-up that I wrote. It's a lie that we tell ourselves only to project onto other people. We hold it in front of us like a shield, trying to protect ourselves, but then all from these pain, shame, and fear, but then all of those things actually bounce off and hit the people we care about. They bounce off of our anger, and we project it onto the people that we care about. So then they start feeling pain, shame, and fear. And so we might be protecting ourselves, but we're passing that on, generational trauma.
Right.
So instead
other
of being
people.
the Hulk, we're really Captain America. We just have our shield of anger and we're hitting everyone with it. and because it's America, we feel righteous doing it. My anger's justified.
So,
So yeah, I mean that is a good way of conceptualizing it, is like a shield, because one of the primary things in therapy when we look at why people are holding on to anger is trying to find out their justification for keeping it. There is some reason that they're holding on to it. Now, sometimes it's an unconscious reason. Most of the time, it's an unconscious reason. They don't necessarily know why they're holding on to it. They just know that they have it. They don't even recognize that there was an option to even let it go in the first place.
right, yeah.
Because most people think that you have to have that anger as a response to something that happened, and that if you don't have it, then it means somehow you're saying that whatever happened is acceptable. So if somebody hurt you and you're angry at them, it feels like if you let go of that anger, then you're excusing the trauma that the person put on you.
Right. Yeah. And you're also letting down that guard, because whatever's behind that anger is too uncomfortable for you or too vulnerable for you to put out there, to either admit to yourself or to admit to someone else. Either that somebody hurt you or that somebody scared you. You know, that somebody shamed you, made you feel bad, or hurt your feelings, or made you afraid in some way.
Well, anger is a very effective energy. When we're talking about like that divine, righteous, justifiable, anger that's built around something going wrong, and we know that it needs to change, that type of anger has gotten a lot of things accomplished throughout history.
Right.
It's led revolutions. It's changed social structures. It's set up systems that were like once oppressive and now are not. That type of anger has real power to
That's
it.
Jesus flipping tables anger.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like that's the kind of anger that can get something done. But so when we have this circumstance where we take these other experiences like pain, shame, hurt, fear, and we project anger on top of it, what we're kind of masking and creating in that circumstance is like a camouflage. It's like we want it to look like righteous anger, so maybe it can actually get something done because we feel like if we're angry, maybe we can accomplish something. I'm not powerless if I'm angry. The problem becomes...
That is huge.
Yeah, it
because
is.
Your anger, especially for people who have been betrayed so deeply or had like childhood trauma, you know, you're brought up. That, for me anyways, that anger has been some of the only empowerment I was able to hold on to in those situations, is because that anger is what gave me, which now I recognize the fine line between the righteous anger of standing up for yourself and you know, not taking abuse, and then using that same anger to turn it around and make it abusive. There's that very fine line of doing that.
Right.
And so, like, you know, now I know that, but then it's just all you do is you learn to take that anger and you just learn to do exactly what's been done to you. As you take that anger, it makes you feel powerful, and you just put it onto other people and continue that cycle. If you take that anger and use it just to build yourself up, that you may use it as divine anger, as like to stand up for yourself and make yourself feel strong in that moment to stand up for yourself instead of projecting more abuse onto other people. That's the difference.
There's a fine line between righteous anger and self-righteous anger.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And it's easy to delude ourselves as to which it is if you're not a conscious person.
Yeah.
Well, so it's a very good point to bring that up, and because the two can try to mimic each other so closely. Well, especially if self-righteous anger tries to mimic righteous anger. Righteous anger, you can tell. One way you can tell it's righteous is that the cause is not for you, it's for a collective. But the other thing is that once the injustice has been undone, the anger goes away. With self-righteous anger, it never leaves. So you can correct an injustice, whereas a self-righteous person has said, I need you to do this, and because you're doing this wrong, and you change it, and they're like, but they're still angry at you, or they're finding another person to project their anger on. The fuel source is not the actual injustice itself, because if that was the case, the injustice, when it's corrected, the anger would go away. For the self-righteous, whenever anything they point out gets corrected, they just shift their anger to something else. It's always a need to have that laser beam focused anger at something, because they need to feel control in a circumstance. They're not trying to change anything. They're just trying to feel control. And they're trying to mimic righteousness as a means of controlling other people. So they either want to control a system or control others or control individuals. But that's what it's always about. I will never be satisfied. I will always have to find something to point out as being negative.
And that can relate back to any type of situation where they felt completely out of control. So what you need to really what we all really need to look at is like, why are we angry? The things that make us really, really angry, why do they make us so angry? Is it because like I said, we all have our justifications, and it's not always loud either. It's another thing I said in the email that I wrote up. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's the cold shoulder, it's quiet resentment, or it's even a lot of times it's plastering a fake smile on your face and then beating yourself up inside because you won't allow yourself to feel a certain way or be a certain way, or you feel like you shouldn't be a certain way is a better way of putting it.
Well, that's like anger turned inward.
Yes.
So you have this projected
That's
anger
still-
onto others,
Yes.
but a lot of people have anger toward themselves. And so one of the things that I notice about the effects of trauma is that the effects can be outwardly destructive or inwardly destructive, or flip-flop between the two. Some people are just really outwardly destructive, some people just only beat themselves up, and some people flop back and forth. But the idea, though, is that you take that anger and turn it inward at yourself, then how do you ever justify letting go of it? Because you always feel like you're a terrible person. Whenever you turn that anger back at yourself, the things that you learn about yourself or you teach yourself about you is that you're awful, nobody likes you, you deserve to be treated like crap. And even without really good justifiable reasons, you just feel that way. And no matter what anyone says differently, you're almost always in attack mode on yourself.
There's going to be some reason, some situation that made you feel that way, that made you start having these thoughts towards yourself. Mm-hmm. So that's what therapy is good for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't have known these things without therapy of where my anger comes from.
That awareness, it comes back to this all the time, doesn't it? It's
Yes.
just becoming like aware, because you can be so unconscious that like, whether it's a self-righteous anger directed at others, or whether it's this like self-hating thing that you're doing inwardly, a lot of times you're not even hearing yourself or where it's coming from, and no idea, oblivious.
Yeah,
And-
right. You don't even hear it really.
Yeah, and so like it's going to perpetuate itself for as long as you are out of touch with where it's actually stemming from. And yeah, so therapy is where it's at.
Yeah.
Or having really great support systems that you can communicate with.
Yeah.
I think the hardest type of anger to get rid of for people is when they actually do have good reason to feel shame about something. So they actually did something that was shameful, caused somebody harm or pain or whatever it was, and then they develop this sense of hatred and anger toward themselves as a means of punishment. So they're like, okay, if I just stay angry at myself and hate myself, one, I deserve it. Two, maybe it'll keep me from doing things like that again. And so that can be the hardest type of anger to let go of, is the anger toward the self, when you know you have absolutely done something wrong. So one of the things that we work on in therapy for that circumstance is trying to help people understand anger towards yourself is only going to breed more problems in the future. You are never going to get to a point where you're going to be a light for other people, where you're going to show people what redemption looks like, where you're going to give people an understanding that there is a chance to heal from the things that you have done so that you can be a better individual or human being, because as long as you tear yourself down, you'll never allow yourself to have something good. And then you may think, well, I'm just going to totally devote my life to other people and just tear myself down, and I'll give myself to everybody else. Well, you can do that, but when you tear yourself down while you're giving yourself to only everybody else, all you're doing is wearing yourself out to a point where you're really no good for yourself or anybody else, because all you've done is beat yourself to death to a point you cannot even accomplish showing anything like love, compassion, affection. Everything that you begin to generate into the world is manufactured to mask the hatred and anger that you have towards yourself. And then people start to recognize you as being fake or hard to deal with, or that you're inconsistent. Even the people that love you are like, yeah, it's really difficult to interact with you because I can't give you a compliment. I can't do anything for you. You're tired all the time. You're broken down. You're depressed. And so that self-hatred is only going to drive you to a state of being less useful for people, where you would never hold that same standard toward anybody else that you loved.
Right.
Like you would never tell your kids, okay, you did something bad. You're going to have to just learn to hate yourself forever. Don't ever let anyone ever tell you anything good about you, because it's wrong. Even if I tell you, it's not right. You're just a terrible human being. Remember that, okay? You would never do that to another person that you cared about. But we'll do it to ourselves for decades because we feel like that somehow it's justifiable, or meaning it's got some meaning to it, like we deserve this chain that's around our legs.
And that's where, like, you know, of course therapy is always good, but that's where, like you were saying, like a good support system, people who are going to tell, because, you know, me and Stacy, I think you're okay with me saying that, we do this a lot. We're like, we hate ourselves, we're horrible, and we get in those cycles in our heads of like, nope, we're just worthless to people and everything. And so having people there that you trust and love, and that you know that they're going to tell you the truth, good or bad, and then taking that good that they tell you and be like, okay, they're telling me this, and and having those things to fall back on, and being like, okay, I trust this person and they're saying this, and that helps a lot to be able to be like, okay, I know this isn't true about myself because this.
Yes.
And then continuing to try to build on that, and actually starting to do things and recognizing the things you're doing and celebrating those small victories like that, because like those people who are in your life who can tell you those things are going to be helpful.
Touchstones of reality.
Yeah, exactly. Touchstones of reality. And then of course my faith helps me a lot in that too. Like of like, you know, being worthy and being worth something.
And forgiven.
Absolutely. And being able to forgive. One of the most profound things that somebody said to me, it was actually a preacher's wife. I was having a hard time forgiving myself for something that was really heavy for me at one point in my life. And she said, well, you said that you feel like God has forgiven you for it, but you can't forgive yourself for it. So if you feel like God's forgiven you for it and you can't forgive yourself for it, then are you saying that God's forgiveness isn't enough? And I was like, oh, whoa, no. So like, you know what I mean? Like that really helped me kind of look at things, and I'll think about that a lot when I'm giving myself a hard time.
Yes, and what you were saying, Matt, about like how we wouldn't project that same amount of hatred onto somebody else that we like give to our own selves. Like when me and Andrea have had these kind of talks, you know, and like, and you're so hard on yourself. I'm like, you're wonderful. Like you're doing all these amazing things, so on and so forth, you know, but then you'll reflect that back to me and I'll be like, oh, like, well, like, I guess I shouldn't be like that, you know, damning on myself as well.
Mirroring. That's right. That's what that is. Yeah. That is very helpful.
Yes.
That's helpful for me. And I notice that's very helpful for other people, is like when they're giving me this and I'm there's a lot of times that people will say things to us and we're sitting there thinking, that's so funny that they don't recognize that in themselves. And so saying that and being like, well, you do that same thing, you know, or giving that back to someone else, it not only makes you feel good because they're saying it to you, but it makes you feel good and them feel good because you're helping lift them up and helping them to recognize as well.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's what you just said too about like, you heal people. I feel like better by being able to like accept those things about yourself that are imperfect and recognize like we're all imperfect
Yes.
and we're all, on a different struggle bus, but it's all struggle bus. But like healing those things up instead of hating ourselves for them, you're going to reach more people and
Yes.
you're going to like be able to become that light that is going to shine for other people when they're feeling dark.
Yeah, there is absolutely no reason why you cannot identify that you have done things that are wrong, bad, shameful, hurtful, whatever they are, but let go of the anger that you have towards yourself and the self-destructive nature. It's not saying that, oh, okay, well, everything I did was justifiable. Because if you're trying to justify it, you're nowhere near ready to forgive yourself. True forgiveness, whether you're forgiving yourself or somebody else, it's a process, and the process starts with the identification that you or somebody else did something wrong. And there's no reason to forgive if some injustice hasn't been done. So if an injustice has been done either by me or someone else, then I have to be able to admit that it was wrong. Here's the consequences that I'm aware that it caused, or here's what you did to me. And then I need to be able to say, I choose to no longer be angry at myself. And anytime that comes up in the future, I'm going to remind myself continually that this anger is poisonous. It will never fix anything. And I do need to let it go.
And it is continuous.
Yes, because until you find what's at the root of that anger, and there's going to be several different roots, especially if you've been hurt more, if a normal person's been hurt more than one time in their life,
Yeah.
So if there's several different times that you've been hurt or afraid or betrayed or something, and you've got a guard up and you've got an anger, there's going to be different types of anger that you're going to have to find the root to.
I think the last thing I'll mention about where anger can come from is, for many people, it's a power source. I cannot say something that I really need to say unless I'm angry. And one of the things I try to get feedback to people is, if you can say it when you're angry, why can't you say it when you're calm? Because it's almost always more destructive if you wait till you're angry to say something than just saying it when you're calm. But that is what most people feel like they have to have, is I have to get that well up of anger inside of me so it will override my thinking brain and allow my emotional brain to finally erupt, and then it will say everything. So
And use it. That's when you're using it as a shield. You're using it as a shield, so you're protecting yourself. So I'm going to go rawr at you so that your rawrs at me aren't as hurtful. Basically.
yeah, I kind of think of it as like you pulling the handbrake on your vehicle and slamming down the accelerator at the same time. Is that what all you're doing is just building up all this energy, and then you finally get angry enough, you let it go, and you just shoot off, rather than saying like, okay, could we just maybe like have a conversation about what's mildly frustrating me, and we just drive like grandma and not like a like a racer, and maybe we can actually get somewhere without wrecking. Because if we wait till we're angry, it's uncontrolled, it's all over the place. We have all of these conversations about all the other things we're angry about, so we get this muddled argument that occurs, and then we resolve nothing, and all it does is add another thing to the pile of the muddled conversation that we've never actually got to resolve in the first place. So if you can say it when you're angry, you can say it when you're calm, and probably more effectively. You just need practice and help. So if you're needing help with learning how to control your anger, how to better communicate under anger, or even wondering where your anger is coming from, therapy is helpful for that. You can reach out to us at Affinity Counseling Services, AFFINITY, on Facebook. You can contact us by phone, 870-324-5122, or you can contact our Missouri location at 573-840-0440, or you can sign up at counselingwithaffinity.com. Anything else we need to address? Anything from A Lovely Pause that you want to throw out there?
We have our Angry August coloring pages.
And your blog.
Yes, it's all in the email. It's not really a blog. It's just a little email write-up, but it's in the, you can sign up for our newsletter on alovelypause.com or on our Facebook page. So if you sign up for our newsletter, you will receive an email code to download those pages.
Yep, and A Lovely Pause is very close to being an official 501c3. Awesome.
Yes.
Good. All right. Oh, there was some anger right there.
We won't go there.
You know, I don't get angry at LegalZoom.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll just go ahead and end on that note. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
Bye,
Bye.
guys.